have the exact same name and date of birth as someone else.
Welcome to Audit Archive, where we run you through some of the most questionable and rather atrocious police encounters. Today, we're looking at a case where an officer quite literally kidnapped a man by unlawfully detaining him and taking him to jail, only to realize that it was the wrong man all along. On September 8, 2022, an officer of the Bartholomew County Sheriff's Department was dispatched to a storage unit property after someone had called 911 to report that some suspicious activity was allegedly going on around the area. The officer arrived at the property and immediately made contact with a group of 3 people who could be seen loading up a few boxes and other belongings onto a pickup truck. The officer asked all 3 subjects on the scene to stop what they were doing and told them why he was there, informing them about the 911 call too. In response to this, all 3 subjects conveniently complied with the officer and were evidently cooperative, as one of them even went to find documents that would prove that they were simply moving their own belongings and doing nothing illegal or suspicious. In addition to this, the officer asked for each of their IDs, which were also compliantly provided.
Hey guys.
How you doing?
How are you?
Good, yourself?
I'm alright. Can I have everybody step out here, please?
Yeah.
Including those 2.
Yeah. Come out here.
Good, man. Oh, we just got a report of you guys. Is there a 3rd?
Yeah. Brandon.
Okay. Yeah, come on.
He wants you out here.
Okay. So basically what happened is we got a report of you guys loading up things into your vehicles.
Right.
Yeah. It's his stuff. They just closed and he needed to get his stuff out.
I understand.
Yeah.
Do you have any proof that
I can probably find a bill or something. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Is that fine? I'll find something. No, that's...
Do you have your driver's license by chance?
Yeah.
Yeah, can I borrow that, please?
I kind of figured y'all would probably show up.
Yeah.
I was like, I don't know what show up.
Could I have ID for
Oh,
you too
yeah,
as well?
sorry.
Thank you. And if you two could just or if everybody can stay where I can see, that'd be ideal. Thank you.
After this, the officer took all their IDs back to his patrol vehicle to run them in the system and make sure everything was clear. As the officer was doing that, one of the guys came up to his patrol vehicle to show him some proof of ownership, which would make it clear that all 3 subjects on the scene were not partaking in anything illegal. This should have been enough for the officer to conclude his investigation and leave the scene. However, the officer completely neglected the proof provided and simply carried on running their IDs on the system anyway. After running one of the subject's IDs, namely Bradley Bowman, it appeared that he may have had a warrant. The officer then asked dispatch for a list of items that they shouldn't be moving out of the storage unit, and also requested dispatch to confirm if the subject's warrant was valid or not. Then, in response to this, dispatch first made it clear that all 3 subjects on the scene were completely allowed to move any of their belongings without an issue. This, for the second time, proved that nothing illegal was going on there, but the officer, for some reason, wanted to dig deeper.
Is that the bill, man? Is that the bill?
No, this is just, I got just proof that, you know,
Here's
this
your
stuff's mine.
345.
Okay.
Yeah, that's...
Alright.
Okay.
Oh, you can go back over there.
45.
Can you log one large paper brown bag of evidence secured in my vehicle, please?
I'm clear. My partner's advising that they can take the stuff. He just wanted them to leave, I guess.
While the officer waited for a confirmation on the warrant, 3 other police officers arrived on the scene. Then, the officer stepped out of his patrol vehicle, strangely muted his body cam, and then engaged in a conversation with the other responding officers for a few minutes. As you may feel, this behavior was rather suspicious, as we will never know what exactly was discussed. But regardless of that, it's to be noted that dispatch had not yet confirmed Mr. Bowman's warrant at this point, and the officer still decided to take Mr. Bowman into custody anyway.
Sir,
How are you?
late to the party. What's going on?
Nothing. It's what it sounds like.
Oh,
It sounds like that.
like a bullshit call.
The Bowman subject might have a J4 though.
Okay. But are they? They're not even in the unit, are they?
No, they're just. Jesus Christ.
Hi.
Yeah. What's up, guys?
You have the route section. Yes.
Oh shit. Into this, I'm gonna be kind of not happy. No, I'm good, man. No, I got it. If it ends up being a thing, I got it. It's not a problem.
If your ADL is close.
Third shift should have been coming.
It's all good, man. Sorry about that. That's you.
Yep.
That's you. Brandon, can you stand up for me, man?
Yeah.
It looks like you might have an active warrant, man. So just until they confirm or deny, I'm going to detain you,
Can you tell
okay?
me for what?
Can you put your hands behind your back for me?
Yeah.
As seen in the body cam footage, Mr. Bowman continued to show compliance, and even without being told a reason for his detainment, placed his hands behind his back without any trouble. While the officer placed Mr. Bowman in handcuffs, dispatch finally responded with a date of birth, which corresponded to the subject with an active warrant. At this point, it was the officer's duty to immediately match this birth date with Mr. Bowman's. And this would have been a quick process, as Mr. Bowman was very compliant and would have been more than happy to help the officer clear up any confusion. However, the officer once again neglected a crucial piece of this situation and proceeded to pat Mr. Bowman down after telling him that the warrant was for failure to appear. Despite Mr. Bowman's visible confusion, the officer refused to clarify exactly what was going on and proceeded to place Mr. Bowman inside the patrol vehicle. What would have been the end of this investigation was now being unnecessarily prolonged, all thanks to the officer's negligence. It could very well be said that the officer was essentially kidnapping Mr. Bowman at this point.
Brandon Bowman, 3293.
Yeah. It looks like a failure to appear, man.
Failure to appear for what?
Failure to appear. I'll tell you when we get to the car. All right? Can you put your cigarette out for me? Thanks, man. You got anything that's gonna stick me, poke me, hurt me?
No.
Okay. Do you have any property you wish to leave here?
I mean,
Over on this side.
I don't
Up against the
think
corner.
so.
All right. I'm gonna pat you down, all right? Is this just property right here? Are you gonna want to take this with you?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I set up my phone.
Okay. Is that just a piece of candy right there?
I don't, yeah.
Or is that a key fob you need to something?
No, I don't need that.
Okay.
I think it's like a rock.
Alright. It looks like a key fob.
Looks like it's plastic. I don't think it's candy.
Okay.
I think it's like for like
Okay, so you don't. Okay.
You don't need it? What's this right here? Your phone? I'm gonna take it out, alright?
Yeah, that's fine.
Alright.
Hey, bud. Is your keys in your van?
Yes, sir.
You cool if they take it?
Yes, that was 34.
Alright. Take a seat for me. Can you get on the other side and pass that through to you? You're good, man.
We need the seatbelt?
Yeah.
Oh, I see what you're saying, yeah.
We had to cut down a tree, that's why there's wood shavings back there, man. I'm sorry.
Oh, you're alright.
I know they're uncomfortable, but it's a short ride.
You're alright.
Now handcuffed and placed in the back of a patrol vehicle, Mr. Bowman asked the officer about the warrant for the second time. This meant that the officer had one more chance to do his job and check the name and birth date provided by dispatch to that of Mr. Bowman. However, the officer simply told Mr. Bowman that his system was not showing too much information about the warrant, so they'll be heading to the department where everything will be sorted out. This was not a valid reason to drive Mr. Bowman all the way to the department. It appeared almost as if the officer just wanted to take Mr. Bowman into custody, regardless of whether he was the man with the warrant.
Hey, when you get a second,
Yeah, what's up?
can you send me your report number? 285.
Yeah, no problem.
I just got tagged by him.
Yeah, I'll send it to you right now.
Thank you, sir.
Yep. Excuse me, sir. Can I get out? You're behind me. Sorry. Yeah, no problem, man. Yeah, I'll look it up for you right now. Yeah, no problem. It looks just for failure to appear. That's all I have on my end, but when we get down there, they'll be able to give me the actual warrant and I can tell you what it was for.
340 your status.
10-6 en route. 1 male J3 to BCJ.
During the ride to the department, Mr. Bowman is heard telling the officer that he's never even had an interaction with any member of law enforcement in the area, implying that there'd be no way for him to have a warrant in the county. By now, any officer would have at least checked to make sure that the names match, but this officer here simply remained silent and neglected any due diligence.
346 your status.
Yeah.
Okay. 331, I tried to transfer. Did it go through?
Finally, the officer arrived at the department and unlatched Mr. Bowman's seatbelt so he could step out. Then, the officer pulled out his computer to look into the warrant, rather than make sure he had the right man standing in front of him. And once again, all the officer said was that the warrant was for failure to appear, which just showed how negligent and irresponsible the officer was. It's to be noted that even at this very point, the officer has not made any effort to verify Mr. Bowman's identity. Clearly, the officer was confident that Mr. Bowman was the man they needed to book into jail. During this interaction, Mr. Bowman made sure to emphasize, once again, that he never spoke to anyone from law enforcement in the county of Columbus, implying that there was no way that a warrant could have been issued against him. In response to this, the officer claimed that the warrant may not have been out of this county.
I've never had any sort of interaction with law enforcement out of this county ever. I mean, I've never lived here. I've never.
Yeah, it just looks like failure to appear. It might not even been out of this county.
What came next is something that should have happened way back on the scene. The officer mentioned the date of birth provided to him by dispatch over the radio, and Mr. Bowman appeared to be visibly confused, asking the officer what that number was. In response, the officer said that it was Mr. Bowman's date of birth, but Mr. Bowman was quick to correct the officer and told him his actual date of birth. At that point, the officer knew he messed up. Watch as he mumbled in the realization of his mistake and finally checked Mr. Bowman's ID to verify if he was the man they were looking for. And as expected, it became clear pretty soon that Mr. Bowman was falsely detained and almost booked for no reason at all. Well, the only reason would be the officer's lack of responsibility and awareness. One thing to note is how the officer immediately put the blame on dispatch rather than taking responsibility for his negligence. He implied that this was not his fault at all, and that he was simply misinformed over the radio. After realizing what he had done, the officer uncuffed Mr. Bowman and told him that he'd be taking him back to the storage unit property.
Three 10/1993.
What's that?
Your birthday.
No. 1594. Yeah, no, that's not me. Birthday's 1594.
Yeah.
Social's 305.
Yeah. That's on them, not me. Come on, we're gonna take it back. We're gonna take it back. I'm gonna take you out of those trucks.
Subsequently, the officer continued to try and deflect responsibility onto dispatch in order to present himself as faultless. To make things worse, the officer also blatantly lied to Mr. Bowman, stating that dispatch had told the officer that Mr. Bowman was wanted, and that was why he was brought to the department. However, as we've just gone through the body cam footage, dispatch responsibly informed the officer about the person to look for by giving their date of birth. It goes without saying that putting the blame on dispatch was yet another instance of the officer displaying irresponsible behavior.
That's on them, not on me, man. I'm sorry.
I'm totally not even upset with you, bud. At all.
Well, that's from dispatch because they told me you were wanted, and that's not your fault or my fault.
I ain't mad at you.
Listen. Here's your ID back.
Thank you very
That's
much.
you. I'm gonna take you back. Are they still there? Do you know? Can you give them a
Probably
call real
not.
quick?
Yeah, I can call them.
And I'll meet them with you.
Yeah. Yeah, I got this.
Here, hold on. Get in the car and I'll
Alright.
take you back.
After Mr. Bowman got back inside the officer's patrol vehicle, the officer asked a fellow officer inside the department to open the garage door so he could take Mr. Bowman back to the property. As if his lies were not enough to satisfy himself, he gave his fellow officer the same alibi, saying that dispatch confirmed the wrong person. Clearly, the officer was trying hard to throw the blame elsewhere. As the officer drove out of the department, he can be seen reaching for his radio and requesting to speak with dispatch. Then, immediately after, instead of speaking to dispatch, he resorted to calling his supervisor on the phone in order to explain the situation that had just occurred. It can be assumed that the officer knew that dispatch had nothing to do with the situation. It was in fact the officer's personal mistake of not verifying Mr. Bowman's identity when it was needed. So, it made sense for the officer to call his supervisor on the phone instead of being caught in his lies by dispatch. As expected, the officer continued to tell the false story to his supervisor too, saying that they confirmed the wrong Bradley Bowman.
Open the door. Open the door. Yeah. Dispatch confirmed the wrong person. Yeah, he's not even coming. On 450 South? Like all the way south? Yeah, I don't care. Oh, yeah, I can take you there.
Finally, the officer dropped Mr. Bowman off at a gas station where the other two subjects were waiting for him. The officer appeared sorry and wanted to ensure that the group knew he had no malicious intent. However, this contradicted the officer as he continued to tell them his false story and shifted the blame onto dispatch yet again.
It's not gonna be him. I took him out of cuffs, and I'm taking him to meet the people that he was with at the Circle K on State Road 11. So I didn't begin the booking process or anything like that. I'm just gonna document in my report what happened exactly. They confirmed the wrong Bradley Bowman.
Although there seems to be no evidence of deliberate malice in this incident, something which may protect the officer from legal action, his behavior was undoubtedly irresponsible and negligent. This serves as a reminder that it's important to be aware of your rights, since even if we set aside the fact that the officer misidentified Mr. Bowman, it could be argued that Mr. Bowman did not need to identify himself in the first place. Under Indiana state laws, it's understood that if the police stop you for an ordinance violation or traffic infraction, you have a statutory duty to provide the investigating officer with your name, address, and date of birth or your driver's license. Failure to identify yourself in this context is a Class C misdemeanor, which carries a maximum penalty of 60 days in jail and a $500 fine. However, upon approaching Mr. Bowman and his partners, the officer had no evidence to prove that either of them had violated any law. Therefore, it's safe to say that none of the three subjects on the scene were obligated to provide any identification from the get-go. At the time of this recording, Mr. Bowman is looking for representation in this case and seeks to file a complaint. Be sure to check out our previous video where we cover another outrageous police encounter